Let me talk to him. Let me talk to him.
Welcome to the Matt Schneidman Show.
That's a guy who is an intriguing one because he was an undrafted free agent.
Follow Matt on Twitter and Instagram at Matt Schneidman.
This is good stuff.
Or use the talk and text line at 1-414-799-1973.
If he can carry over what he's done in practice to games, then maybe we could start talking about, okay, Packers might have something here.
Now with Doug Russell, here's Matt Schneidman on the game.
Friday edition of the Matt Schneidman Show. I stole that line from Mike Heller. Mike Heller always says a Monday edition of the Mike Heller Show. So I sound like Mike Heller, which is a good thing. Maybe why do you tilt your head like that, Doug? Is that not a good thing?
No, it's fine. Mike and I like to poke fun at each other. So
okay, fair enough.
It's all in jest. I assure you. There have been some people who over the years say you two really don't like each other. No, that's not true at all. Come on.
Little
now.
Friday, December 29th action. The last show of the year. Not the last show of the season, but the last show of the year. I am actually driving to Minnesota right after this show ends.
Oh, very nice.
You know, my lovely mother and sister are already in Minnesota. They flew in from Connecticut just to, I guess, see the game, spend time with their favorite child, even though my other brother is probably more liked than I am.
But does your mother make him sweatshirts though?
No, but he also doesn't have his own radio show.
Oh, that doesn't matter.
So we'll have a nice Saturday, go to the Lakers Timberwolves game tomorrow night. And then Sunday is game day. Obviously, that's the reason you all are listening to this show, to get the deets on Packers Vikings. Elimination game. That's what it is. I don't think the Packers have a 0% chance of making the playoffs if they lose as of now, maybe based on some results that happen before their game on Sunday. So maybe by the time they kick off, if they lose, they will have a 0% chance. Bottom line is it's an elimination game. If they win, still very much alive. Believe the New York Times playoff simulator has their odds going from about 29% to 61% if they win and down to 1% if they lose. So it's about as must-win as a must-win game can get in the regular season. As we do every Friday, we're leading off with the final injury report of the week. Shocker, another stacked one for the Packers. Nobody ruled out before the game. But doubtful are Devondre Campbell, Luke Musgrave, who has yet to be cleared, I should say, yet to be activated off IR. And then Luke Tenuta, same with him. Emmanuel Wilson, same with him. They've been designated to return, all three of them, but not activated yet. And then, obviously, the big one, Christian Watson, doubtful, who did not practice at all this week with a hamstring injury. Matt LaFleur did say yesterday that Christian Watson and Dontavian Wicks, asked specifically about those two, would have to practice in some capacity on Friday in order to have a chance to play. Dontavian Wicks and Christian Watson both did not practice. Wicks is listed as questionable, however, so he has a better chance to play than Watson. And then the other three guys who are questionable are TJ Slayton, who was upgraded to a limited participant from a DNP yesterday, Robert Rochelle, and then Darnell Savage, also questionable. All three of those guys were limited. The good news for the Packers, they will get back a key player who did not play last Sunday in Jaden Reed. He is off the injury report and good to go. So right now, it looks as if Christian Watson won't play. I'm just talking pass catchers. Dontavian Wicks, Matt LaFleur said he would have had to practice today to have a chance to play. He did not practice today, but he's still listed as questionable. So let's say he doesn't play. Sure, the Vikings don't have TJ Hawkinson, but Jordan Addison's questionable. He practiced in a limited capacity the last 2 days. So the Vikings will probably have Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, KJ Osborne, their top three receivers, while the Packers will be without Christian Watson and Dontavian Wicks and be left with Romeo Doubs, Tucker Kraft, Jaden Reed, then the Bo Meltons and Malik Heaths of the world. So Packers probably have it worse on the injury report right now, but they also have, I would say, the better quarterback.
Well, they've got, I don't think there's any doubt about that. I mean, you're talking about the musical chairs that they've been playing in Minnesota ever since the Kirk Cousins injury. So, I mean, I think he's making his second NFL start, first NFL start?
Second. I believe he came in for the Falcons game.
And then got concussed.
And then he got concussed.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you're talking about a 5th round draft pick, a rookie. So I think it's a pretty obvious that the Packers have a pretty significant advantage at quarterback. Um, but, I mean, listen, the Vikings have a home field advantage and they're playing for their playoff lives. I think the difference is the Packers, I think, have a little bit more momentum. Certainly the Carolina game didn't go defensively the way that they would have wanted it to, but what you've been hearing from the Vikings the last couple of weeks is, can you just get a win late in the season so we can put some distance between ourselves and Green Bay and just seal this thing up? And they haven't been able to do that.
Right. Yeah, the Packers are obviously coming in with more momentum, but there's a reason I believe the latest line is Vikings are favored by 1 point. There's a reason it's that close because the Vikings have the edge in pass catchers, but the Packers have the edge in quarterback. But at the same time, Jaren Hall is going up against a defense that has made below average to Baker Mayfield's above average this year. So let's just stick with Tommy DeVito and Bryce Young. Joe Barry's defense has made both those quarterbacks look exemplary. Now, I understand, the Panthers didn't really get it going until the fourth quarter, but Bryce Young's final stat line is what it is. He had the best game of his career. Tommy DeVito had the best game of his career. Baker Mayfield had the best game of his career. If the Panthers had won, Bryce Young probably would have been NFC Offensive Player of the Week too.
Yeah, but for Bryce Young and Tommy DeVito, the sample sizes were pretty small for that. At least Baker Mayfield, he's got some starts under his belt. I'm not saying it's great. I'm just kind of maybe looking too hard for a silver lining there. You're talking about a couple of rookies, but we'll see what happens. I guess.
Yeah, but Bryce Young and Tommy DeVito weren't like CJ Strouds, where they had been really good throughout their rookie season.
No, you're right.
Rookie seasons of futility.
Yeah.
And in Tommy DeVito's case, he had only started a couple games, but the bottom line is Joe Barry's defense has made quarterbacks look a lot better than they probably are the past couple weeks. Jaren Hall can run a little bit. We'll talk to Alec Lewis, who covers the Vikings for us at The Athletic, coming up here in about 13 minutes. Get the lowdown on who Jaren Hall is, what the Packers can expect, the other injuries. So I don't want to dive too deep into the Vikings. But what I will say is, now is as good a time as ever for Joe Barry's guys to, quote unquote, play for him. Not that they haven't been, but they need a shutdown performance because Joe Barry is probably going to lose his job after the season regardless, but to get them into the playoffs would be big. After everything the Packers have gone through, the Devondre Campbell frustration, all these injuries, the Jair situation, the moving parts on offense and defense, the Joe Barry job speculation, if they could somehow backdoor their way into the playoffs, that would be remarkable. And Joe Barry said it this week. He was asked, what would it mean for your guys to play well for you considering everything that's happened, considering how tough last week was for Joe Barry leading up to the Panthers game? He said, I just want to win for the Green Bay Packers.
It's a good answer, I suppose, but let me ask you this, and I'll admit, perhaps some speculation here, perhaps not, but you're in the locker room every day. I'm not. You talk to these guys every single day. I don't. Do you get the feeling that they would play specifically for Joe Barry on defense?
That's tough because I don't know. I haven't heard any guys go out of their way to really shower Joe Barry with praise and shoulder the blame themselves. But then again, I haven't been in on every interview scrum.
Sure.
I haven't, asked every guy directly, who's to blame? What do you think of Joe Barry? Jair Alexander did say he liked the game plan going into the Panthers game, while also saying, we just got to play the call that's called. So that's one of the lingering questions from this season that still is kind of yet to be answered, and it never would be really truthfully on the record, I don't think, assuming the answer is, maybe they're not the biggest fans of him, is what does the defense think of its coordinator? What do the guys really think of Joe Barry? I don't think guys would quit, to use a real significant word there, just because they don't like their coordinator. I've said it before, these guys have families, paychecks, their own health to play for, their own teammates. Like, they're not mailing in just because they might not like the defensive coordinator. But I haven't really gotten my finger on the pulse of what they really think of this guy. And you're never going to get that probably entirely truthfully. Probably entirely truthfully. A couple adverbs there in a row. My English teacher taught me to never do that, but I just did.
Because when you talk to guys, I mean, the coaches that they lavish the most praise upon generally are their position coaches.
Sure.
So, you just wonder because, listen, I mean, even Joe Barry admitted it himself a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, I read what you guys write.
I don't know if that's true, but yeah.
I think it is, though. I mean, why would most coaches say that they don't? Most coaches, I'm just, football. I'm in the film room every day and I'm there 18 hours a day. I don't have time to listen to what you guys say. Joe Barry actually, showed a human moment when he said, and most football coaches don't, some do, but we haven't seen a lot of that in Green Bay over the last, 40 years. That he said, yeah, I read what you guys write. And, I think players do that too, to a certain extent, more than they would ever admit. I mean, listen, Aaron Rodgers over the years would constantly say, I don't read what you guys write, but he did.
The thing with these coaches and players is even if they don't directly read stuff and seek it out themselves,
people tell them.
They have people around them who tell them.
Yeah.
So maybe it's true that they don't read it, but they have people around them who tell them. I know Aaron did. I know because Aaron cares about how he's perceived.
Of course. Most people do. Most people don't want to admit it, but most people do.
It's not a knock on him. It's human nature.
Of course it is.
Because in a lot of ways, sure, these guys can shape the narrative around themselves in this social media age and the age of giving athletes voices. But like it or not, a lot of stuff that's written and said, and I guess I'm part of, I don't know if I would call it a problem, but I certainly play a role in this, is what's reported on a day-to-day basis about these guys shapes the narrative about them.
Of course it does.
And you should care about how you're perceived. If someone writes to steal a Coach Prime word, some bull junk about you, you should care. Whether it's someone saying it about little old me, Matt Schneidman, or whether it's little old Matt Schneidman writing it about Aaron Rodgers. And, Matt LaFleur sees stuff. Aaron Rodgers sees stuff. These guys see stuff. So, sure, Joe Barry, I don't know if he reads it directly or seeks it out directly while he's trying to get his defense in line, but he has kids who are old enough to absorb this stuff and feel it. He has a family. It's only natural to see what's being written about your dad or your husband or, people around you who bring it up.
And no time, like you said, no time like the present with the Minnesota Vikings on Sunday night. I mean, I just get a sense that these are two desperate teams because they are two desperate teams. The Vikings defense, I think, has gotten a lot better this year. Brian Flores has done a really masterful job. I think, Wayne Larrabee talked about it a little bit last night on the Football Feast, of changing the culture in Minnesota. They just had a revolving door quarterback. That's really the only true issue that I see, along with, a team that hasn't been able to close the door in the last couple of weeks. And I think the last win that they had was that 3-0, whatever you want to call it, against the Las Vegas Raiders a few weeks ago. So, I mean, it's just a team that they're always desperate to beat the Packers. And as people in Green Bay like to say, these two teams have a combined 13 league championships together when you put them together.
I know where you're going with this one. How many do the Vikings have, Doug? Go ahead.
They have none.
Go ahead.
They have none. And the Packers are kind of carrying that water for that, when you combine the two with the empty trophy case up there in the Twin Cities. But that's kind of what Packers fans feed off of. But Vikings fans are desperate to change that narrative.
It's funny. I'm gonna read this text from my mom this morning. She was on a flight to Minneapolis with my sister, and she put in our family group chat, the pilot just said, "Welcome to the flight to Green Bay, Wisconsin." Then paused as my mom was thinking, wait, we're on the wrong flight. Then the pilot continued, just kidding. I thought I'd mention a place that could actually win a Super Bowl. So the pilot's having fun with it too.
How many groans did he get?
I don't know.
Because if you're flying to Minneapolis, he probably didn't want to hear that. But that's funny.
Or maybe you got some Packer fans that are going for New Year's Eve weekend and going for the game. So maybe there were some Packer fans coming from the East Coast on that flight.
Perhaps.
Let's get to a break. On the other side, as I mentioned, the great Alec Lewis from The Athletic covers the Vikings, does a great job for us. He'll give us the lowdown on the injuries, on Jaren Hall, what we need to expect out of the opposition ahead of this massive game on Sunday night. Stick with us right here on the Matt Schneidman Show on The Game. Friday, December 29th. I hope the people didn't hear me just grunt as I slipped and my computer almost fell off the table as I went to catch it. But we are back. Last show of 2023. As I mentioned before the break, we're joined by the talented Alec Lewis, our Vikings reporter at The Athletic. All right, who in the living HE double hockey sticks is this Jaren Hall fella we're about to watch in a must-win game for the Minnesota Vikings?
Yeah, hey Matt, how are you? I hope your season's been well. It's been very normal over here with every quarterback under the sun. Jaren Hall is a rookie from BYU. He was a fifth-round pick. He started the Week 9 game in Atlanta against the Falcons, played a drive, looked pretty fine, played a second drive, tried to scramble, got hit near the goal line, and was concussed and was out for multiple weeks. Had some concussion issues in college at BYU, so it exacerbated the injury a little bit. But yeah, we don't know. I mean, I don't in terms of what he can provide. There's some qualities there. He's cool. Got some different arm action stuff to him. He's definitely poised. 25. He went to BYU. I probably don't need to say any much there. And then why is he so old? Yeah, no, he had a good time at BYU, I think, and yeah, I think TJ Hawkinson earlier this year said he's a smart guy. He went to BYU. I don't really know. I don't probably shouldn't wade into that. It's not my specialty, but
They
yeah,
have
I've
to go
no
on their
idea
they
what
have to
we're
go
gonna
on their
see.
mission. They take a couple years out of their
I
eligibility to
think
go
that
on their
you're
mission
right. No,
trip.
you're right. You're right. And he played baseball. He came back and he played baseball and football, and then Zach Wilson started ahead of him, and then he kind of he supplanted Zach a little bit after Zach left. So yeah. Anyway, no idea what we're gonna get. He has a receiver named Justin Jefferson, and getting him the ball will probably be the priority.
So why did Kevin O'Connell make this decision? I saw he said, basically, I'm paraphrasing here since I forget the exact quote that you tweeted out, but we got to stop giving the ball to the other team. What was the impetus of this decision to, again, switch quarterbacks?
Yeah, I mean, the turnover issue has just been a gigantic problem all year. It affected them with Kirk early in the season, and then Josh Dobbs obviously came in that Atlanta game, won the game. It was phenomenal, incredible story, played well the next week. And then the two games after that, I believe the first was against the Denver Broncos, the second was against the Bears. Josh turned it over, I mean, at least three times in each game. And then Nick Mullins came in, and Nick Mullins, I mean, I think the impression from the outside from a lot of people was like, okay, Nick Mullins, your classic pocket passing type backup quarterback. No, he is the quarterback version of a Red Bull mountain dirt bike jump over from one mountain to another in terms of he will throw any pass as far down the field as you could possibly throw it, and he threw 4 interceptions this past weekend after some interceptions the week before in Cincinnati. And so when you turn the ball over, they've had 5 games this year where they've turned it over 3 times or more. So it's just Kevin O'Connell, since he's been the head coach here, when they have broke even or won the turnover margin, they've won every game. So it's for him, it was like, can we just get this turnover margin to get our turnover, the amount of turnovers we commit to 0, and we'll see if Jaren Hall can do that or not.
Yeah, well, Jaren Hall is probably thankful that he's going up against a defense coordinated by Joe Barry that has made the likes of Tommy DeVito, Bryce Young, and Baker Mayfield look like absolute all-stars the last couple weeks. So if you want to not turn the ball over, the Packers are a great defense to play. I'm trying to look up on True Media now how many takeaways they have, but I don't think it's that many. All right, the big news of the week is obviously this Jair Alexander-Justin Jefferson matchup. You remember week 1 last season, Jair asks to shadow Jefferson. Joe Barry doesn't let him. Jefferson goes off mostly in the first half. Then week 17 last year, Jair shadows him a lot more. Jefferson has 1 catch for 15 yards. He doesn't play in week 8 because of his injury. I don't know what the Packers are going to do specifically. They don't have anyone worthwhile to follow him. But what have you seen from Jefferson since he's come back from injury? Obviously, he had a tremendous game last week. Is he fully back to the first team All-Pro Offensive Player of the Year, Justin Jefferson?
100%. Yeah. I mean, he is, and from what I know, he was really looking forward to this with Jair, given what happened in week 17. So, yeah, I was just selfishly, I was looking forward to it. I remember last year, week 17, it was a weird night. I mean, I remember that was a very weird night, at least from the Vikings perspective. And like the field, either the field was wet or the Vikings wore the wrong cleats. I don't really know, but they were slipping all over the place that night. And I remember there was a pass breakup early where Jair like grittied on top
He
of
did the
Justin. I know
gritty,
you
yeah.
remember that, and the fans probably do also. But I was just looking forward to seeing. I mean, yeah, Justin is. I mean, this past weekend against the Lions, he was as electric as I've ever seen. I mean, honestly, I mean, he made a catch and double coverage down the stretch in the fourth quarter that reminded me of the Buffalo catch, which I didn't think I'd ever see anything like that again.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, I mean, this guy, they've tried to get him the ball. I expect probably the Packers to kind of do similar to what they did last year, which is like kind of bump him at the line of scrimmage, see if they can cover him over the top. I mean, it's fortunate for Joe Barry that the Vikings are without TJ Hawkinson, who leads the NFL this year in targets among tight ends. Like it's been kind of low key, but he has gotten so many targets, especially over the middle of the field. So to not have him, and then to have Jordan Addison questionable with an ankle, I think he probably will play, but to have him questionable, the Vikings weapons beyond Justin should allow Green Bay to probably just load up on him and see if they can take him away, which sometimes is possible, but most times not.
Right. Yeah. TJ Hawkinson's a big loss. Obviously, DJ Wanham is as well. What else do we need to know about the Vikings injury report? I let off the show talking about the Packers, how they're going to most likely be without Christian Watson and Dontavian Wicks in the pass catching department. You know, start of this week, it seemed, okay, well, the Vikings aren't going to be with Hawkinson or Jordan Addison, but it looks like Addison's trending toward playing, correct?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'd put it around like 50-50. I know that's not
okay.
giving much, but I really think he did a little bit more today. He's not moving around great, but I mean, him being out there and the way that Kevin O'Connell's talked about it, I kind of think it's possible. The other big injury that, I mean, I say big, their best corner this year has been Byron Murphy Jr. And to say he's their best corner is not much because their cornerbacks have not been spectacular. But behind him is second-year guy Caleb Evans, and then rookie Mekhi Blackman. So even without Christian Watson and Dontavian Wicks, I mean, these cornerbacks are pretty gettable. I'm really interested, just like I was last time around, to see how Brian Flores treats this thing. The Vikings the last 2 weeks have kind of gotten gashed, and they played two really good skill groups, Jamar Chase 2 weeks ago, and then the Lions skill group. But just interested to see if some of the susceptibilities of their defense show again against Jordan Love. And if he handles it probably better than he did the first time around.
Yeah, I think, and I looked it up, the Packers are tied for 24th with 16 takeaways. So Jaron Hall, probably just don't throw the ball right to the Packers, and they probably won't intercept it. And even if you do throw it right to them, they probably still won't intercept it because they've had a handful of passes, whether it's Jair or Quay Walker, go right through their hands or just fall off their hands. That should have been interceptions or pick sixes. Jordan Love's been an absolutely different quarterback since these two teams met in week 8.
Yeah.
I think he's like third in EPA per snap or third in pass EPA per dropback behind Dak Prescott and Brock Purdy since week 9. The last 3 games, or the last 6 games, I should say, he's thrown 13 touchdowns and 1 interception with like almost 1,600 passing yards. Where is the spot on this Vikings defense? You kind of alluded to it, where the Packers can exploit them most, because sure, you don't have your most explosive deep ball threat in Christian Watson, but Aaron Jones ran for 127 yards last week. He seems to be as healthy as can be this late in the season. You have guys like Romeo Doubs and Jaden Reed who have made some big time plays this year. I think they have like 15 combined touchdowns or something like that. Where can the Packers really target this Vikings defense?
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. I think they're pretty susceptible everywhere right now.
Okay.
And it's I say that as a byproduct of the injuries. Like, I think DJ Wanham's absence really, I mean, they're already so thin on the front. I mean, the fact that DJ Wanham, they had not planned for him to be their starting edge rusher. They had planned for that to be Marcus Davenport, who hasn't played, I don't think, since week 6 with an ankle injury. So they're thin on the front, really thin. And then in the back end, again, I just mentioned they don't have Byron Murphy. and the cornerback and linebacker and Jordan Hicks, he's been really solid calling signals, but his range back there is not great. And for as crazy as Brian Flores has gotten with the scheme, again, these last 2 weeks they've kind of been figured out. And your mention of Aaron Jones is probably where it starts. I mean, the Vikings have stopped the run kind of mildly well. I know last week Harrison Phillips, their big interior defensive lineman, had a little back thing. He played through it. I think he's better this week, so that'll give him probably a better shot at stopping the run. But I mean, it's probably going to be the Vikings trying to get the Packers in 3rd and long and force Jordan Love to either see the drop 8 or the 6-man pressure. And if they can do that, they should be okay. But if Aaron Jones is running all over him the way he looks, I mean, he just explodes off the tape, then it's probably going to be a tough go for the Vikings defense.
I remember this was before you covered the Vikings. I think you were still covering the Royals. This was in 2019. So, yeah, were you still covering the Royals then?
Yeah, first year.
Yeah, 2019 was my first year covering the Packers, and I remember kind of a similar setup we have this game going. At prime time, it was week 16, back when there were 17 weeks. The Packers came into Minnesota and clinched the NFC North by winning 24-10, and Aaron Jones had like a 60-yard touchdown run with 4 minutes to go to ice the game or something. So Packers could certainly use that because the Packers are coming in off a win. You know, they snapped their 2-game losing streak. It was a 3-point win against the Panthers, but a win's a win. The Vikings are on a little bit of a slide here. Are they just crawling to the finish line? Or do you think they still have something left in the tank to really turn this thing around and make a push at an unlikely playoff spot?
Yeah, I think it's more crawling. I mean, just with the amount of injuries, and I typed it up earlier this week, but I mean, Kevin O'Connell had the press conference Tuesday, and it's just one guy after another. They've already lost Kirk. They traded for Cam Akers in the middle of the season. He came in, he ran the ball pretty well. Then he tore his Achilles. I mean, I mentioned Marcus Davenport. Jordan Hicks, again, their middle linebacker, had emergency surgery about a month and a half ago after a game where his shin had to be spliced open. I mean, they have just been through the ringer from an injury perspective. And I mean, the defense, like I mentioned, they've kind of just given everything they've had. And to this point, at this point, just these last 2 games just hasn't been enough. So, yeah, I mean, look, with that environment and the crowd behind them, you just never know. And especially in this league, I don't think you ever know. But it's definitely, I think you could see from both players and coaches, like this whole thing is taking a toll on pretty much everybody.
Yeah, and that's just the way it is, not only with these 2 teams, but with the entire league this season. I mean, we're looking at Joe Flacco being comeback player of the year after playing, a couple weeks with the Browns. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, naturally.
What's your gut feeling on what happens this game? I don't want to put you to the fire and ask for a prediction, but that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going Packers 24, Vikings 20. I think the Vikings are going to get theirs, and Jaren Hall's going to get his, but I think the Packers defense can come up with, at least one takeaway, and I just think Jordan Love's playing well enough that he can do enough along with Aaron Jones to eke out a narrow victory.
Yeah, that prediction's probably smart. And you say you don't want to, and then you just did. So, I mean, obviously you wanted to, and so I really appreciate it. I'm actually going to go 20-17 Vikings. I said this earlier on the radio here, and people were like, "Really, dude?" And so it's probably. I mean, I don't know. I'd say anything I pick, probably go against it. That's the way I feel like I would go if I were you. But yeah, Joe Barry's defense. You know this. I was watching the film earlier this week, and I'm watching some stuff they're doing, and I just was like, I don't know, man. If Bryce Young can do that, and the Vikings can scheme their pass game the way they do, like I just don't know. And I don't know. I mean, you know way better than I about the Packers' ability to stop the run or lack thereof. But
yeah,
I imagine
what
the
ability?
Vikings are going to want. Yeah, I'm imagining the Vikings are going to want to run Ty Chandler in this game. They barely ran it last week against the Lions, and to establish that early, I think something they're going to want to do. And I still have a little too much faith, a little bit, in Brian Flores just being able to throw something ridiculous out there. So that's my prediction. It'll probably be wrong.
Brother, I have been so wrong about almost every single game this year. There was a stretch there where they beat the Chargers, Lions, and Chiefs 3 games in a row. I picked the Packers to lose all 3 of those games. Then I picked them to beat the Giants and Bucks. No, I picked them to lose to the Bucks. But there was like a 5-game stretch there where I just get everything wrong. So if you're listening to this show, neither team is going to win because I picked the Packers to win. Alec picked the Vikings to win. We're both wrong. It's going to be a tie. Can you imagine that if it was a tie on Sunday night? Holy hell. How
Nothing I'd
anticlimactic
rather
would
do
that
than
be?
spend my New Year's Eve watching a tie between these two teams.
I was having this discussion with a friend in the Packers locker room today. At least we don't have to stress about making New Year's Eve plans since we'll just be in the press box working when the ball drops.
You're right. No, you're very right. Very true.
All right, good stuff. I'm driving to Minneapolis right after this show ends in about 26 minutes, so I'll be up there. I'll see you Sunday. Great stuff as always, and Happy New Year. I'll say that again to you on Sunday night, but looking forward to it this weekend.
Yeah, you too, Matt. Thanks, man. Safe drive. See you
All
soon.
right, take it easy. That was Alec Lewis, our Vikings writer at The Athletic. Check his stuff out if you want to go more in depth with the opponent's side, which I'm assuming some people do because this game is of the utmost importance. Maybe you didn't with the Panthers last week because who really cares about the Panthers? But the Vikings-Packers, super important. Doug, what was your biggest takeaway from kind of our look into enemy territory there?
And just how desperate I think both teams are. And, the fact that, you're on, what is this, their fourth quarterback in Jaron Hall, that, they just haven't had a whole lot of success because of the injury to Kirk Cousins that happened 2 months ago, ironically, against the Packers. So, this is a team in Minnesota that they just want to change the narrative, I think. And the Packers are a team, I think, that's on the rise. The Vikings, I thought, were going to give, and maybe they could have with a healthy Kirk Cousins the last couple of months, that would have given the Lions a run for their money. I thought the Detroit was the best team in the NFC North at the beginning of the season. Obviously, they've won the division, but they've also had more health than Minnesota has. And Green Bay's on the come up, and the Bears are still the Bears. So I guess my biggest takeaway is that, Minnesota isn't a bad team. They've just been a team that's been snake bitten with the injury bug this season. They've got some talented guys, and I think they're, like we were talking about before, their defense has improved, but can they, I guess, find a little bit of luck on New Year's Eve?
Listen, nothing would surprise me in terms of how this game pans out, because I've seen the Packers come out flat to start games. I've seen them come out hotter than fish grease. I've seen them beat the Lions and Chiefs. I've seen them lose to the Giants and almost lose to the Panthers. Anything can happen in this game. So when Alex says, the Vikings can scheme some of their guys open or they can establish Ty Chandler, I wouldn't be surprised if the Vikings win by a couple scores. I wouldn't be surprised if the Packers win by a couple scores. That's the beauty of this Packers season, and we've talked about this a bunch this year, is the unexpected is most interesting, I would say. And you really never know what you're going to get on a week-to-week basis with this Packers team, other than, pretty shoddy defense of late. But who knows? What if they come out and intercept Jaron Hall 3 times, have a pick 6, have a fumble return for a touchdown in the first quarter like they did against the Lions? Who was expecting the Packers to put up 20 points against the Lions in the first quarter?
Sure.
And win that game pretty handily, despite what the final score said? Nobody. So I wouldn't be surprised with anything that happens on Sunday night. But
what was your biggest takeaway?
My biggest takeaway is that Jordan Addison is 50-50. My hunch, and obviously I'm not boots on the ground in Minneapolis or Egan, wherever they practice. I just think if he's been limited the last 2 days and he's questionable that he's going to play, it's different than Wicks, who's been a DNP all 3 days. Jordan Addison is going to want to play. Yeah, obviously he's going to push to play. It's an ankle.
Never fully count out a USC Trojan.
Yeah. An unbiased take there from Doug Russell. Like I said to Alec, start of the week, I was like, all right, they're going to be without Addison, Hawkinson, because I saw a report, I forget who it was from, that Addison was week to week. He came out of the game and didn't return. So not great news for the Packers, because Addison had a great day against the Packers in week 8. Got Jair Alexander in that game as well. I'm checking Addison's exact line. 7 catches, 82 yards, and a touchdown. KJ Osborne had 8 for 99. Obviously, those guys getting more looks because Justin Jefferson didn't play, but TJ Hawkinson, 6 for 88 and a touchdown. That's going to be huge not having him, because he is en route to first-team All-Pro tight end honors, possibly. So, as we've said, both teams kind of dealing with stuff, and who can crawl to the finish line faster.
Yeah, it's going to look like one of those NBA games during one of those timeouts where they have diapers at the end for the baby who can crawl the fastest.
What a metaphor there, or what a comparison there by you. I was not expecting that.
You've been to NBA games. You're going to an NBA game. You're going to the Lakers and the Timberwolves.
I
So
am.
maybe you'll see that during one of the timeouts.
What
And then it will make you think back to this conversation.
they would at intermission, or not intermission, it's not hockey, but during timeouts of Syracuse basketball games when I covered the team in college, they would have like little kids at the baseline and then put a jersey at the foul line, shorts at half court, boots at the other foul line, and they're all oversized stuff. So the little kid has to get dressed in each, then take a ball and dribble down the court while they're tripping over the shorts that are falling down and do all that stuff. And my buddies, my roommates who didn't cover the team and would be up in the stands would always bet money on which kid would win during the game. So
if you have that, if you have the baby crawl, and if you have Red Panda at halftime, I would consider that. I don't know if LeBron's going to be playing or not. It's the Timberwolves, so you never know. But
they're number one in the West. Of course, LeBron's going to be playing.
Yeah, I mean, but sometimes they take time off. Injury management for veterans. Veteran rest is what they say.
Yeah.
So you never know. But if you can nail down all of those things, that's a complete night.
Let's see. The Lakers do not play tonight, so they've got a day off. And then tomorrow, 7 p.m. Central Time, Target Center. So hopefully I'll get to see.
Maybe you will see him.
Little staple. We got to get to one more break. We'll wrap up not only the show, not only the week, but the year.
I'll speak for yourself. I still have.
Yeah,
I still have Packers game day, but
yeah.
It's the last match. You got some very nice texts on the Talking Text line if you want to spin through some of those when we come back.
Let's spin through some of those when we come back. Maybe a little pick-me-up heading into the weekend. Stick with us right here on the aforementioned Matt Schneidman Show, right here on The Game.
The little girl from Sweden dream of silver screen quotation. And if you want these kind of dreams, it's Californication.
disco for 10 minutes instead of talking. Iron Jock wants to celebrate Braylon Allen and his career at Wisconsin. Now through January 7th, when you buy $50 or more, Iron Jock is offering 30% off of Braylon's favorite items with promo code Braylon30. Like the black hoodies, the Cardinal Heather Long, and short sleeve t-shirts, and the original low-cut socks in all colors, black, gray, and white. Are we still playing Dua Lipa?
Yeah.
Go to ironjock.com.
I'm letting it go on. It's underneath because I
That's-
want people to listen to the, to really tune into everything. So, if Dua Lipa is still on, then people are more likely to listen to it. I have found in my extensive research as a radio professional.
I have one line left in that ad read. Go to ironjoc.com. That's ironjoc.com. As you can tell, I'm wearing my Iron Jock today.
I wore mine yesterday.
Yeah, I wear it a lot. I only have 3 pieces of clothing, so Iron Jock, if you want to send me other stuff so I can diversify my portfolio, please feel free. All right,
Paul, you're out there. Paul listens to the show. Every once in a while you get a little care package on the doorstep. That's always appreciated.
Yeah, it's always appreciated.
Always like that.
What do we got on the talking text line?
Oh, let's go over to the talking text line. We got some got a little bit of love for the Matt Schneidman
Just
show.
a little bit.
A little bit. Let's see. This is
I will say, can I say one thing before we start? So I have gotten some questions, not to toot my own horn here, but I know I did tweet a picture of me wearing a Matt Schneidman show sweatshirt.
Yeah.
That was a gift from my mother for Christmas. We got them. Well, I shouldn't say we. She got them embroidered at Team Apparel, a local shop here in Green Bay. I went and picked them up yesterday. Only 5 for my immediate family.
It's not much.
Now, I don't know exactly how it works, but I believe you have to get a certain number in a bulk order to get a discount on embroidery. Screen printed sweatshirts are cheaper. I don't know exactly how much the embroidered ones cost, but they're not exactly cheap because they're obviously a higher quality. So for people asking where can I buy those, not on sale yet. I don't know if they will be in the near future if we get some more demand for them. So just stay tuned as we try and grow the brand of this 1 hour long show.
It's supply and demand. So you have to demand it for there to be supply. It's
of course.
Economics 101. Come on now. But keep asking. And if you want to see what it looks like, I think you put it on Twitter yesterday, didn't you?
Twitter and Instagram, yeah.
Twitter and Instagram. There you go. Just put it on the socials.
And wore to the gym. I'm really wearing the heck out of this thing.
You want people to ask you about it, basically, is what you
Well, actually, I brought another shirt to the gym yesterday, which I went to right after our show because it's near the studio. And I just forgot to bring it into the locker room at the gym. And I was already wearing my it wasn't a show that we did yesterday. It was the football feast. And I wore my Matt Schneidman show sweatshirt while I was on the football feast. We're not on StreamYard for that. Then I go to the gym. I forgot to bring my other shirt into the gym. So I just worked out in my sweatshirt, my Matt Schneidman show sweatshirt. It was not intentional. It was not planned, but it just happened. I did not get any questions. Like I'm on the bicep curl machine and people come up to me like, what's the Matt Schneidman show? I didn't get any of that.
I want to see you wear it at the last Packers game of the year against the Bears.
I don't know.
In the press box. That would take stones.
You're saying that's going to be the last Packers game of the year, Doug?
The last Packers game at Lambeau Field, it will be.
You don't know that. They could get the 6th seed.
I mean, that's pretty far-fetched.
And host the NFC Championship game against the 7th seed?
Yeah, that's pretty far-fetched.
Yeah, so probably the last Packers game.
So I'm saying the last home game of the season. I would like to see that. So
all right, talking text line.
Let's see. Ivan in Wausau.
All right,
loves the show and
Thank
says,
you,
"Hey,
Ivan.
Hey, Matt."
Hey.
He has a question actually, and he also wishes you a safe drive to the Twin Cities.
Thank you.
And he's listening on 93.9 in Wausau.
Okay.
What's up with Anders Carlson's lack of touchbacks? Is this kick it high with hang time a strategy? We really haven't had any cold games. What's up?
That's a good question. I've been wondering the same thing because it looks an awful lot like Mason Crosby struggling to find the end zone. We'd need to ask Rich Bisaccia about that specifically. We have not, so I don't have a direct answer for you on that. But you're seeing a lot of guys just take the fair catch. Against the Buccaneers just fair caught every single kickoff. So I bet it's game plan specific. They study how often these guys take it out of the end zone, how often they just fair catch it. Maybe if they pop it up to a corner and don't kick it into the end zone, that gives their coverage team more time, so they think they can pin him inside the 20. Rich Bisaccia did point out yesterday that the Packers lead the NFL. I have not fact-checked him on this. They lead the NFL in kickoff return tackles inside the 20, which is good, but they also lead the NFL in number of times tackled inside the 20 on kickoff returns. Not good. So Packers, this is a discussion for another time since we only have a couple minutes left, but special teams doesn't get let off the hook either when we're talking about the phases of this team that are underwhelming right now, specifically of late. As Bill Huber has pointed out multiple times, and he did to Rich Bisaccia, the Packers lead the NFL in special teams penalties.
Yep.
They didn't pay Rich Bisaccia to have that stat in their name.
Correct. Yes. Joe and Madison, who's listening on 1070 The Game. Matt, love you and Doug and your chemistry together. Thanks for the great show.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Joe.
That means a lot. We hope, listen, what we want to do with this show, we want to give you not only information, not only a little bit of entertainment, just something to listen to. You know, I've heard from people who listen to the show in podcast form when they walk their dog, you know, maybe on the drive home, just a little escape. I know I listen to radio shows and podcasts just to pass the time or an escape. You don't need to love us, but if you're tuning in, we really appreciate it.
Absolutely. What are you listening to on the drive up to Minneapolis? Because that's a good 5-hour poke.
Question. I don't know. We didn't record a brick in the stick this week because we normally do on Tuesday, and Tuesday was the day after Christmas, and John was with family. And then the last 3 days have been availability, and we've both been busy. So we'll give you one before week 18.
Oh, that's nice. There you go.
That didn't answer your question. I don't know what I'm going to listen to yet. Probably a little mix of music, maybe throw a podcast or two on there. I don't know. We'll have to figure it out.
Okay. Let's see. JB in the 920 says, love the show in this time slot. It's a savior on long days and not having to switch to national talk.
A savior.
That's what he calls it. It's the Odd Couple. That's the show on Fox Sports Radio that we are on instead of. The Odd Couple doesn't do it for me. Hey, to each their own. But you guys put on a well-produced show. Thanks.
Well-produced. That's what I heard there. Well-produced, Doug Russell.
That's what we're going to concentrate on. A well-produced show, and it's been fun listening to Matt grow as a guy on the radio and not just on the keyboard.
Wow. JB, I appreciate that. That means a lot. You know, I'm obviously a writer at heart. I started doing some radio and TV in college. Hopefully you don't mind me on either medium, but I have enjoyed, and the show's not over. The show's
No, it's just for the year.
I think I have I'm doing the show through the draft. I signed a 10-month contract to do the show. I hope it gets renewed for a second year for next season. But yeah, the show's not going anywhere. This is just kind of the yearly wrap up, but it gives me a different way to talk about the Packers. Like in my writing, you focus on the nuts and bolts or a feature story. This allows me to share more opinion, interact with the readers more, not the readers, the listeners, I should say. So I appreciate that feedback. I'm glad it has worked out. I'm glad people still tune in. I don't know how many people listen on the radio. We need to get Tim Scott to tell me that, but we do have some solid numbers on some of the streams, and we appreciate anyone for listening in, whether it's during the show live or after the fact.
Definitely. And we'll be podcasting the show shortly after we get off the air. And by the way, in Milwaukee, on our flagship station, 97.3 The Game, the Badgers in the Quick Trip Holiday Classic at Fiserv Forum, taking on Northeastern tonight. Pregame show starts right at 7 o'clock. Face-off is at 7:30. So if you're in Milwaukee, stick around for that. You can also listen to it on the iHeartRadio app. And I know in Madison, it's not on the station that we're on in Madison, 1070 The Game, but instead it'll be on 1310 WIBA. So Badgers hockey coming up. They're the 6th-ranked team in the country right now.
All right, Doug, before we get out of here, remind the people what time they need to tune in to the Packers pregame show on Sunday.
Packers game day starts at 3 o'clock. Kickoff at 7:20 on our Milwaukee flagship, 97.3 The Game. But Packers game day, 3 o'clock until 5 o'clock before Packers preview. So, yeah, listen, nobody does more Packers coverage in the entire state of Wisconsin than us here on the Game Radio Network and on the Packers Radio Network. And, we're the flagship for both. So tune in.
Please do. All right, we got to get out of here. I have a long drive. We appreciate you all for listening today, this week, this year. And guess what? We'll be back on Monday with another show. Will the Packers be in a win-and-in situation against the Bears? Will their season simply still be alive? And they need some help still from maybe the 49ers to beat the Rams. Will their season be all but over after a loss? We're about to find out. Can't wait to get up to Minneapolis. We thank you all for listening. We'll talk to you on Monday. For Doug, I'm Matt. Peace out. Happy New Year.
Yeah. yeah. In my head, oh yeah.